the one thing I think your background has in common, many things I'm sure, but you both started or had a good degree of time as story artists on films.
I've worked since about '96 doing storyboards over at DreamWorks and then over at Sony as well. So yeah.
Okay, so talk about what that process is and how you got to that position, and then why, as a story artist, you then were chosen to direct. I'm just curious about that because it's
the pathway.
It's a little bit different.
Well, I think the closest sort of related live action job to story is probably the writer's room. We speak in a very visual language, and a lot of what we try to do is make the movie before we make the movie, and we experiment because animation is very expensive. So, you want to kind of go through that iterative process, and we work very closely with the writers, and we spend a lot of time drawing and redrawing the movie. It's like a comic strip panel that then gets put to time. And in that world, you're kind of mini directing your sequences when you're owning them, up to the point where you send it to editorial where it's cut into time.
Yeah, because you're drawing character and camera at the same time, and a lot of times we get up and pitch, so we're also performing all the characters.
Yeah, which is sort of how we get a lot of voices in the movies too, because they get used to hearing us do the characters, and so there's a lot of invention and a lot of kind of iteration in that what if world that we spend time in, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of story artists become directors, because in the directing chair you're dealing with a lot of the what if, and you're kind of creating something from scratch, and so we spend time doing that. We also get exposed to the studio system, the executives, how to kind of get something through. So there's the business side of how you make something, which is important to learn.
So how do you rise to the top in that? I mean, what's the...
Well, I think they really liked our storyboards, and they liked the ideas that we had, and both Kris and I were on the first Cloudy until the very end of story. So
quite a while.
Yeah.
I was actually on Cloudy 1 longer than Cloudy 2. I mean, even though I was directing Cloudy 2, it was 4.5 years in story. So
wow.
Yeah. And you have to be a bit like a punching bag. I mean, like a lot of it's not giving in to sort of your emotions. You just kind of have to keep bouncing back with new ideas.
Yeah, we probably throw away 90% of the drawings that we do.
Yeah, there's an old saying, "Kill your babies." I think that they use for writers. It's the same thing for story artists.
So, how many story artists are there on a typical film like this, and what's the hierarchy? How do you?
I mean, usually there's maybe 8 to 12 people, and then up until about the end, it was really down to a crew of maybe 4
or 5. Yeah, and then we have a head of story who. We delegate a lot to, and the head of story basically lives in editorial with us, and as stuff changes, as stuff develops, it's his or her job to kind of be point man at communicating all that stuff back through the team.
So I think that there's a lot of co-directing going on in animation right now, and that's like probably more so than in live action history. There's 2 directors. How does that work with you guys, and what's the division of labor? And
well, there's no real division at the beginning. I mean, we share in everything. We're at every meeting.
We kind of use each other like soundboards. So coming from story, I mean, we like that collaboration and that kind of conversation that you can get with another human being.
Yeah, and then really the last 6 months was when we had to start splitting up. And so maybe one day Kris would go to animation and I would go to layout, or we'd flop, so that we could still have our eyes on everything. And then at the end of the day, we just kind of talk about what we saw and kind of, go through things.
I think unlike live action, which tends to have a momentum when you get on set, that it just gets done and you're out there shooting for like 3 weeks or a month or 2, and animation takes years, so it's nice having some partner that you can get sick with, and I can see my kids, and you know what I mean, like it allows you to kind of be a human being for the duration of the process. So it's.
And so how did you 2 come to be paired together? Did you work together as before, and then they said, hey, these guys are great together?
We started off on Open Season, and we worked on Surf's Up together, and then Cloudy we were on.
You've been at Sony for over 10, right?
Yeah.
And I've been in there for about 9.5.
I always round up, so now I just crossed 10, so I say 11.
Does that mean I should say 10 or 9? Should I round down?
It's up to you.
Okay.
Personal choice, yeah. They had an idea of switching the genre, like going into the monster movie, and very quickly it was like the 4 of us in the room with our new writer, Erica Rivanoia, and it was like old days. We were just kind of breaking story and throwing spaghetti on the wall.
Plus there was a lot of leftovers from the first film. We had the gummy bears, the pizza slices, I know, full of puns. And it was great to actually come back and work with that stuff again, because we had spent at least 2 years working on various different sentient food moments, and it was nice to come back and finish that.
We were working on a script, and of course a studio needs us to touch base every so often. So we had developed a kind of an outline for a story we had done some animation tests with the strawberry berry and the pickles. And so we went into Amy Pascal and Michael Linton, and we pitched them the story. And it was kind of like blah, 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 berry, because once they saw that little running strawberry, they got excited about the hook of the film. So that really gave us some momentum. Real science. We studied strawberries in Oxnard for a while, you know.
Microphones like up close. I think he's saying it.
One of the funnest experiences was getting James Caan to sing with the pickles, because you know, I didn't know how that would go. You know, he's a very serious man. He's, you know, very accomplished actor, and he completely went with it and just had a blast. The only problem was he sang it in Irish.
First,
so it took us like 2 sessions to get him off of the Irish thing, because it didn't sound like Tim.